Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about Stranger Things 4, Season 4. Actually, spoilers for all of Stranger Things here. And we're going to talk about Dustin, and Dustin being right, usually, but being a jerk about it. All right, let's talk about this. Okay, so I really want to talk about Dustin Henderson from Stranger Things 4 right now, from the perspective of Dungeons and Dragons and the perspective of Dungeon Masters, and the perspective of Dungeons and Dragons players, and being right and being wrong and being a jerk about it, because these are all very Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, all right, let's get into this. Let's jump right in. Okay, we're in a very strange time, right? So Uvalde just happened, right, and terrible happenings at Uvalde. And so there's some very serious discussion happening, right? And one of the things that people are talking about is almost all of the people who are doing these horrible activities, like what we saw in Uvalde, they're almost all men. This is incredibly rare for females to take this action. In fact, you could probably, at this point, you couldn't count on one hand the number of men that have done this action that happened in Uvalde this year, right? I'm not sure you could count them on one hand for the last 3 months, right? But you definitely could count the number of women who have done this in the last, right? So there's this issue of, we know that gender is a construct, but we keep having these hard evidence facts that disrupt this concept, right? Like, if we're exactly the same, why does this data keep coming and interrupting what we know, that gender is a construct, men and women are exactly the same, they can do the same thing? But then we get hit with these realities where the data doesn't match what we know. It's difficult, right? And there are preponderances of data, right? And they can be disturbing. They can be really disturbing, right? Like, we know, equal rights, same pay for men and women. Why do men do this and women don't at the macro level? It's just, and the data, and we cannot ignore data, right? We cannot ignore science. And we just know for a fact that this doesn't happen at the same rate, right? Like, what's happening here? Why, in this particular instance, is gender a sharp divide, right? Like, it's an issue, right? So what I'm going to say right now is, okay, here we go. It is my humble opinion that if you look at Dungeons and Dragons players, at the macro level, they have this problem. They care very, very deeply about right and wrong, right? What is right, what is wrong, and they are jerks about it. It is a very Dungeons and Dragons thing, in my humble opinion. Let's get into it, okay? You take 2 Dungeons and Dragons dungeon masters, okay, and you say to them, hey, what is the primary colors for the Dungeons and Dragons core dragons? The 5 primary dragons, name the colors, right? And you say to it, and then you take them into a room and you say, say them right now. Say all the colors, start to finish. Go, right? Dungeon Master 1 says red, white, and blue, black, green. These are the 5 primary colors of the core Dungeons and Dragons. Not counting metal, not counting, gem dragons. If you're just talking standard Dungeons and Dragons, they come in 5 colors. It is red, white, and blue. It is black, and it is green. Right? You ask the second Dungeon Master, and they say the colors are red, white, and blue, orange, and purple. Right? You bring them together. Right? And you say what are the primary? And you have this discussion openly. Right? And the one dungeon master is going to say they're red, white, and blue, black, and green. Okay? And I can tell you the breath weapon for every single one of them. And the other guy's like, well, no, they're red, white, and blue, and they're orange and purple. And the guy's going to be like, you are wrong, I am right. Right? And they're going to be like, how do you not know the basic colors of the dragons? This is a thing, right? Do you even know the core 4? And the other guy's going to be like, of course I know the core 4, right? Wizard, rogue, fighter, cleric. Every good dungeon master knows these things. These are hard facts, right? These are not subject to opinion, right? Right, wrong, right? And here's the thing. Dungeon Masters are not going to be like, oh, whatever you like. You know, you can, nah. And here's the thing. We have, the rules are not page 4 of the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Dungeon Master Guide. The rules are not in charge. You are in charge, okay? Now, you can change. You could say, in this world, the purple dragons and the orange dragons have replaced the black and green, right? But you have to know them, right? No dungeon master worth her salt is going to say red, white, and blue, orange and purple. They're going to say, that is wrong. Wrong. Not like, oh, this is your opinion. Oh, they're going to be like, you didn't read the monster manual. Like, why not, right? And the thing is, while we have this ability to change anything in a game, we have to know it before we can change it. You just don't shovel out nonsense. It matters, right? You have to know the correct damage for a longsword. You have to know the correct damage for a dagger, right? These things matter, right? You have to know the range on a longbow. All these things matter. These values matter, right? And good, right? I would even add great dungeon masters and Dungeons and Dragons players know these values and care about them, right? And they will be a jerk about it. They'll be like, did you even read the DMG? Did you even read the MM? Did you even read the PHP? If you didn't, shove back. Do not take a seat at the table. Do not go forward as a dungeon master. These are core principles. You can get it wrong, but bow your head in shame. Get it right. Get back to the book. Learn it. Do it. Get it right. Do not get it wrong, right? And they care about right and wrong. They will be a jerk about it, right? Dustin Henderson, major theme of Stranger Things 4, right? And this means a lot to me because, one, I'm convinced that Stranger Things is laying a bedrock. It's creating another launching pad for Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is already in Leo, low Earth orbit, right? It needs to make it to the moon, and then it needs to make it to Mars. You know where the OSR is? It's back on the pad in Florida. It's never launched, right? It's done a few blast tests, right? The fire, went off the launching pad, but it never went anywhere. There are no television shows. You're never going to buy a towel with OSR on it, right? It's still stuck, right? And Stranger Things is building this new launch pad for Dungeons & Dragons to go way, way higher than it's ever gone before, right? And it's happening now. It's a big deal, right? So, my favorite character in the entire show is Dustin Henderson. And this season got into this. Steve, at some point, talks with Uma Thurman's daughter and Ethan Hawke's daughter. It's not Nancy. I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. And basically, that character is like Dustin, and Dustin calls out it. So he's like, so one, they needed to build a communication path between the upside down and the right side, and the upside down and the real world, right? And Dustin, he's tracking, he's paying attention to all the clues. And the other thing he's saying is like they're encountering these people who are so the party, right? Whale DM, Will, Lucas, Dustin, Mike, and also Steve and I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. Steve's new friend who worked with him at Scoops Ahoy, right? They have all encountered and even Erica, they have all encountered this upside down stuff before, right? And so Lucas is paying attention, and he's helping people like Eddie Munson. He's helping people in the town that are dealing with being up against the upside down for the first time. And he's like, I know what's happening. I know what's right, and I know what's wrong. And you really need to step back and listen to me, because I know what right and wrong. And I know you think that, whatever your opinion is matters, but there are hard facts on the ground. And if this is going to get done right, we need to be right. Being right and being wrong matter, right? And Dungeons and Dragons is, you don't get people who will read 750 pages of rules as an opening ante to play the game who do not care about right and wrong. They care a lot, right? And these people are the people who are going to build the fantasy infrastructure of the new world in IRL, right? And get this, the fantasy infrastructure is now becoming more important than the reality infrastructure, because the reality infrastructure, right, in a world where we have $30,000 crypto coins, fantasy is worth more than reality now. Catch up. That's where we're at now. That is where we are at now, right? People are like, oh, America doesn't build anything anymore. We do. We export our culture. Our entertainment is worth more than steel ever was. We win the world with it. And Dungeons & Dragons is on the farthest edge of this, right? We are fantasy architects, and we're farther out on this than anybody else out there, right? And people just don't understand the value of a dungeon master. We are reaching this point where it is getting really important. So, but I needed to hear this in Stranger Things Season 4. And if you on this channel, you need to hear it too, right? You care about what is right and what is wrong, right? But you are also a jerk about it, right? It is part of you. It is in you if you are a dungeon master. You have arrived here at the macro level. There are no hippies here, right? Like, it's not just like, it matters. Right and wrong matters, and we will be jerks about it. And we need to acknowledge this, because we can't solve a problem until we acknowledge it, right? And this is me. I am Dustin, and you are Dustin. You are Dustin, right? You are right way more than you are wrong, right? But you are a jerk about it, right? And you're like, well, let's just stop being jerks. It's not that simple, right? It is not that simple. The reason you're a jerk about it is because we have been built into a structure where right and wrong matters, and we are jerks about it because we don't want to let these things go. We don't want to pretend that being wrong is as valuable as being right, right? Now, how do we manage this? Because we don't want to be jerks, but the reality is, I'm very, very confident being right, caring about being right, caring about being wrong, and being a jerk about it is a dungeon master attribute. It belongs to the dungeon master at the macro level, 51%. There might be some exceptions, but generally, this is part of us, right? And it's part of being a dungeon master. And so I don't know what the solution is yet, but I know we cannot solve the problem until we acknowledge it. And I'm acknowledging it. Stranger Things 4 just showed this thing about Dungeons and Dragons dungeon masters and Dungeons and Dragons players, because Dustin is a Dungeons and Dragons player. We never see him DM, right? And this is a part of Dungeons and Dragons dungeon masters, and I would extend it to a very large number of Dungeons and Dragons players. We care about what's right and wrong, and we're jerks about it. And it's an attribute that belongs to us, and we're never going to find a solution if we don't acknowledge it, right? Do you think you're an exception, or do you know Dustin is you? You are Dustin. I am Dustin. Do you see this, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.